It's a very dynamic environment for void properties because when we do get a property back, they are going to be classed as void. And some will need an awful lot of work doing on, and some don't need as much work doing on. So we intend to turn them around as quick as we can. And it can change on a day-to-day basis. You can ask me what it is today, and if I was to give you the figure, if I was to say it's 52 today, tomorrow it might be 50. We might get another house back, and that will become a void property. So we don't get fixated on actual what the number is today, but what we look at is the trend, and is that trend getting bigger or is it getting smaller, and how much time we've got these voids.
Under the vacant properties on the minutes from your meeting, it says that you've had a return of 17 properties, which is higher. So is there a reason for that this month, or is it just something that has happened?
If we look at a trend over a month, a calendar month is a good way to look at things, but really we've got to look at over a 12-month period to see when the houses are coming back. 17 in 1 month is an awful large amount for us to get. Now, when we could look into that to see what the reason is why, but it's not just the tenants that are giving us the keys back. Sometimes it's the families that are giving us the keys back, and we know the reason for that, and we've got no control whatsoever on it. But it is, throughout the year, it's a spiky profile. We just cannot predict how many we're going to get each week, each month, and to some extent each year. But what we can say is we have a turnover on average of 5% a year. There's no change in that over the last 12 months.
How does a property go from being void to vacant to then being viable for somebody on the housing list?
Well, when the houses are returned to us, when the keys are returned to us, people who've got long memories, probably going back 20 years, when you got a council house, you got it as it was, as the keys were handed in, and you had to make it as habitable as you wanted. That's not how we operate in a modern society today. And it's been a long-term project to get to where we are now. And we are, to some extent, fighting a legacy issue here because we have got so many properties that have had a lack of maintenance over a lot of years. So now when we get a house back, the keys back, the first thing that is, there's a survey done on it by our own staff, and they will go in and they will look at everything in that house. And what they're actually doing is they are pinpointing what it is needed to bring it back up to the standard for us to let it. When we let a house, there should not be any maintenance issues for the next 5 to 10 years. We don't anticipate anything being done. If it needs a new kitchen, it will have a new kitchen. If it needs a new bathroom, it will have a new bathroom. But consequently, if it comes back and it doesn't need those things, well, we're not going to spend the money on doing it. So that's why sometimes we can have a building can be waiting for 12 weeks for us to turn it round, and in others it can be turned round within a week, because sometimes all it needs to be done is somebody to go in and clean it and somebody else can have it. But the emphasis on is to be getting it done as quick as possible. The other aspect that you've got to do is when you're looking at houses and you're actually going to be doing considerable work refurbishing that house, it's palatable for us to be able to think, well, if we can get a group of houses together, we can get a contractor in and we can say you've got those 10 houses to do. Some of this work, if it's like plastering, that needs to dry. So if he's working on house number 1, when he's working on that and the plastering's waiting to be dried, he can go on to number 2 and then number 3 and rotate around. So it makes sense for us for some of these jobs, if we do get a large number of houses coming in that do need a large amount of work, is to bundle them together and hit them. In the short term, that can take us a long time. It takes a bit longer to do, but if you look at it over the great scheme of things, over a 12-month period, it shows it to be quicker for us to do that sort of project work.
So do you have a set policy then for moving people out, or when people hand back the keys and things like that? Do you have like a process that you go to for that kind of thing?
You're talking about two different schemes that we've got now here. So when we're at Williston and there's a refurbishment programme that's going ahead now, that's a well-worn policy that we've got. The amount of work that's being done on the houses at Williston, we'd not be able to do that with those tenants in that property. Originally, when they started 7, 8, 9 years ago, it was only the external part of the house was being refurbed. But as it being a learning curve, and because of the consultation with the tenants, there's no point doing the outside of the house if the inside of the house is going to be dropping to bits. So that's why now that refurbishment programme has completely changed. So when people are moved out of a house at Williston into a decant house, that is going to take about a year now. Originally, it was only 14 weeks, but now that can be a year, and that is because the insides are being done. So if it needs a new floor, if it needs plastering, all new windows, if it needs a new kitchen, everything is being done so that it is a refurb both inside and out. Other houses on other places, on other estates that we've got, if a tenant hands the keys back, if we go back into that property and the survey is done, what they're looking at is if the tenant's been in for 40 years and nothing's been done in it, we know it's going to need an awful lot of work doing, and that work will be done. If that tenant's only been in for 2 or 3 years and it's already been through that process then means that when those keys come in, somebody needs to go in and clean it, probably paint it, and then that's turned around. So it's different cases for each one, and every house can be individual, and it can be on a running scale of how much work that needs to how much time it needs to be. But the emphasis is we cannot allow more than 2% of our properties to be vacant. That's under the DOI, and they monitor that closely. We monitor that closely. So that is there is a big incentive not for us to have any property lying empty unless it's absolutely necessary.
How significant is it that you're getting these properties back? Obviously, you mentioned 17 before, and you mentioned that it's about 5% every year. So how significant is it that you get these properties back to then move them on to new people?
For the councillors, especially the councillors that are on the housing committee, it's imperative for us to do that, because if we're on myself being chairman and one of the other members of the housing committee actually sit on the allocations when we have allocation meetings, and we read the circumstances of people that are on the waiting list. We know what conditions of the houses that they're living in. We know exactly why they're desperate for social housing. So for us, it's imperative that if we've got people on our housing waiting list, we've got to get them in them houses as quick as we can. And the emphasis is always going to be is we need more social housing. We have to get people into proper, decent living homes. When you see some of the stories of people, one of the best rewarding jobs that I have is sitting on that allocations meeting, and we went down a list of houses that were being reallocated, and we do get a lot of stick. When you go to an allocations meeting and you see the states of some of the properties and the conditions that they're in, to then say that they can come into a social housing, that's why we do this job, and that's what gives us that satisfaction. So it is a big driver. We see the need, so we also have to emphasise and we prioritise. The faster we can do it, the better we can do it, the more we can do it. That's what gives us that drive to keep doing it.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.